Welcome to this virtual gathering of a community that we call Unity of South Sound. I'm so glad to be with you. I am Reverend Cheryl Mays, and I'm coming to you from Yakima, Washington. I am retired from Unity Spiritual Life Center of Yakima and have been doing consulting in our region. I'm also your regional representative for the Unity Northwest region. So it is wonderful to be here with you, and I look forward to having us come together in an energy of love that has the power to transform the world. As we begin our time together, I invite us to consider these words from our daily word, which comes from unity. And the word for today is will. Spiritual understanding guides my will. And the whole idea of this particular daily word is that when we put aside our own smaller willfulness of how things should go and bring ourselves into the greater will of the wisdom of all that is, which is divine love, things turn out differently. We are encouraged and uplifted, and so is the world around us. So let's just take that in for a moment. I invite you to close your eyes. Whatever you've been doing, I invite you to let that go. Take a deep breath in. And as you let it go, feel yourself relax into this time that we have together. This time of mindfully gathering with one another and in the spirit of love. Thanks be. Thanks be. And so it is. Amen. So I want to talk today about living the truth of all is well. It was July of 2012, and there were three of us from Unity of Yakima, three women, all over 60 years of age. We were heading to a gathering of the 13 Indigenous grandmothers, which was going to be in Lame Deer, Montana, clear south of Billings. We left Yakima early in the morning, and we figured that we could do it all in one day. We knew it'd be a long drive, but we could do it. Well, we didn't realize quite how long that drive was going to be. So after dinner in the evening, we still had about 100 miles to go. No problem. It was starting to get dark, and then the bugs started splatting on the windshield. Not just a few, but so many that after a while I couldn't see to drive. So we had to stop a couple of times and use some of our drinking water to squeegee them off. Meanwhile, it's getting darker. And we all suddenly noticed that there were little lights glinting in the headlights at the side of the road. Deer, lots of them, all along the side of the road. We could see their eyes. And suddenly all conversation stopped as we were all scanning the side of the road, just praying that no deer would come across in front of us. We had to keep going at a certain speed or we'd never get there. We also had to slow down a little so we could pay attention. It was a long 100 miles, but we did make it. We probably pulled into the motel between 11 and midnight. So grateful to be there. And the next morning, when we were talking about the experience, each one of us admitted that that whole time we were praying Unity's prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Did you know that that all is well part is an add-on to the original prayer by James Dillett Freeman? Yeah, and it's one of my favorite parts. And my question for us today is, do we really believe that? Do we really believe? Do we have a deep inner knowing that all is truly well? I want to share a story today of someone who lived in a very different time, who showed us what living the truth of all is well can look like for us. Her name is Dame Julian of Norwich, and she was born in 1342. I think in my preamble to this, I said she was 12th century, but she's actually a 14th century person, born in England. And we aren't even sure if Julian of Norwich was her real name. What we do know is that when she was about 30 years old, she had a very serious illness. She hovered between life and death for a number of days, with her mother and some other women there supporting her and giving her comfort during that time. And during the course of her illness, she experienced a series of visions that she called revelations of divine love. And soon after her recovery, she did recover fully, she wrote those visions down, first in a short text, and then about 20 years later in a longer text, Revelations of Divine Love. She was one of the first women to write a book. At some point, we also know that Julian became an anchorite, which means she was attached to the Church of St. Julian of Norwich. Well, there's her name, exactly. We don't know much else about her other than she is mentioned in someone's will in about 1414. She would have been in her early 70s, so she was well thought of. Someone wanted to leave her some of their belongings in their will. In her 70s, that was very old for that time. Well, so what is an anchorite? Well, there are many individuals at that time, men, women, monks, nuns, lay people, who had themselves permanently enclosed in a small room attached to a church. They took a vow to remain in that room until death. Talk about extreme sheltering in place, right? Julian describes her room. It's very sparse. A bed, a table for writing, a chair. There was one window into the church so that she could listen to Mass and receive Holy Communion. Because this prayer, this life as an anchorite, was a life of prayer and counsel for Julian. Counsel because there was also a window to the street that she could open so that people could stop by for spiritual direction and have Mother Julian pray with them. Why did they live in a time when prayer was needed? Some historians call this time the calamitous 14th century. When Julian was just about 6 years old, the first plague swept through Europe, killing 1/3 to 1/2 of the population. We don't even know if maybe she had a child who died in the plague. The plague would come back 2 more times over the course of her lifetime. Also during this time, there were violent peasants' revolts in England, especially in 1381, when Julian was about 39. Does that remind you of anything now? So a lot of civil unrest and fear because of the plague that was sweeping through. Also, I'm sad to say that during this time, the church constantly preached about an angry, vengeful God. Julian's visions, however, are of a gentle, mothering God. She even speaks of our mother Jesus. She writes of a God who could only be described in one word: love. And she says that God yearns to be one with us, ONED, one with us, she called it. And we are not complete until we have been one with God. And she even implies that neither is God complete until that happens. Imagine stopping by Mother Julian's window to share your sorrow and your fears, and hearing her say, and these are words from her writings, God is life, God is love, God is light. In life is a wonderful sense of belonging. In love is a gentle kindness. In light is our endless human nature. And probably her most famous words are these: all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. Wouldn't we just breathe a sigh of relief and gratitude to know the divine in that way? Well, actually, we do, because we have unity in its understandings of God as really divine love at its essence. I am so glad that we live now, where even with the scariness of COVID-19 sweeping across our globe, we know a power greater than any virus. And even when people treat each other that we experience as different from us, even though people treat others in atrocious ways, we trust in a hidden wholeness at the center of all that is, which holds us all together, calling us always to return to the way of love. That power, that oneness is love, and it is greater than any of our fears. And we can connect with that loving power and presence in any moment simply through our thoughts. We may call it prayer, we may call it meditation, contemplation, or simply conscious thought. When we center ourselves in thoughts of love, we remember we are whole, no matter what, and we can breathe again and be at peace. There's something about so many of us having to stay in our homes and stay away from each other during this time that reminds me of Dame Julian of Norwich. Could this be the opportunity to set aside all those constant distractions that have kept us running here and there so that we might truly be still and know what? That God is with us, in us, changing the consciousness and the circumstances of the world around us through us. Has our stopping brought us any new insights? What have you learned in the past 14 weeks about yourself and about how you want to be in the world when this is all over. One thing I learned was how precious my time with Jackson is. We are still constantly surprised at the joy of having found each other. And we're newlyweds. We were just married last August. And so I don't want to miss a moment of our time together. And thus, during this time, I've come to decide that it's time to do retirement part two. Other realizations have come along as well. Seeing how our planet has revived a bit as we have consumed less fossil fuels, I want to dedicate myself to being a more conscious, less heavy consumer of those fossil fuels and help us to create policies that keep that in place for all of us. Seeing the social and economic inequities among people in the world and in our own nation, I want to use my energy to lift up those who feel overlooked and overburdened in our world. How? Well, I'm not sure. I do know that whatever I do needs to come first through the wisdom of my heart connecting with the wisdom of all that is. I think of Dame Julian praying in her little anchorite cell, and I want to be in prayer as well, in order that what I bring to the world comes from that love, comes from my knowing I am one with that, and we all are. I want to act as one who has awakened to the new possibilities that are before us. Remember these words by Rumi? The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the door sill where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep. May we not lose heart in this unique time in our world's history. The presence and the power of love will never leave us. May you know at the core of your being that all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. Let's take a minute to let that sink into our hearts. I'm thinking of Sharif Abdullah, who is the executive director of the Common Way Institute down in Portland, an Afro-American who has given us many things to think of. And along the way, he wrote a book called Creating a World That Works for All. And how will we do that? Well, he says first we begin to vision things differently, to use our imaginations. And then he says we need to come from our heart. We need to meditate before we act. So let's do that. If our question is, how shall I begin to create a world that works for all? Let's bring that into a time of moving into heart reflection. If you're comfortable, I invite you to close your eyes. Take a deep breath in, let it out. Imagine now as you breathe in, imagine breathing into your heart space. letting that breath out. And now let your mind focus on something that gives you great delight, something that you love without reservation. It may be a grandchild or your beloved. It may be a beautiful place in nature. It may be something that you have created, just something that fills you with love, joy, and appreciation. Do you have that in your mind's eye now? As you're breathing in and out gently in your own rhythm, seeing that, feel that love and appreciation in your heart space. And it fills that space. Feel your heart expanding in love and appreciation. And that expansion continues until you are including all those near you in the houses or the apartments or the condominiums near you. Now expand it out to all those that are tuning in with this virtual service today. Love and appreciation going out. Let it expand now so that it goes out beyond our state, beyond our nation. Love all around, beyond our world, our dear planet Earth. Love expanding, expanding till the whole universe is filled by love, as love. Now ask your question. What is mine to do? Loving wisdom to help create a world that works for all. Let's just be in the silence. As you gently begin to bring yourself out of this beautiful connection, the answer may have already come to you in an image or a word. It may come to you over the next day or days. Allow yourself to stay open. Trust the message that comes to you. Know that no matter where you are in the presence of divine love, and divine love guides your way. Let's close with the prayer for protection, as it is being done in many Unity churches now, adding some affirmations. The light of God surrounds us. We are the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. We are the love of God. The power of God protects us. We are the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. We are the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Namaste. Thank you. May you be blessed.